Authority Spotlight. I'm your host, Michelle Prince, founder and CEO of Performance Publishing Group, making a difference one story at a time. We'll be shining the light on successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders that are getting results and making a difference. We'll talk about how they built their businesses, are creating movements, and leveraging the power of authority in their own lives. Be sure to stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Power of Authority Spotlight, where we shine the light on entrepreneurs, leaders, and founders doing extraordinary things, making big things happen and sharing their stories. And I cannot wait to introduce you to my guest today. But first, this episode is brought to you by Performance Publishing. If you have ever thought about writing a book, or if anyone has ever told you you should write a book, go to performancepublishinggroup.com, grab a free strategy call so we can start exploring what your story is and how you can get it out there into the world. All right, let me introduce you to my guest today, Kevin Waugaman. He is a business and life coach. He's a Christian, a loving husband, proud father, and founder of Momentors, LLC. Kevin created Momentors with a mission of helping people maximize potential and remove obstacles to live out their dreams. He started his working career as a busboy at Sawgrass Marriott before going on to successful sales and operations roles in finance and real estate. He received numerous promotions over the years, rising in the ranks to CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Florida Network Realty before launching his current entrepreneurial venture. Born in the small town of Stuart, Florida, he grew up loving the outdoors and could often be found fishing, surfing, playing most sports, and simply swinging through the mangroves. As a young adult, he struggled with overdoing things, eating, drinking, partying, spending, working. Yes, you can overdo this, among other self-limiting behaviors. Can't wait to talk about that one, Kevin.
Okay.
He draws on many of these personal experiences and the challenges overcome as a mentor and coach. He's always driven to help people to remove the obstacles in their lives, to realize true potential and higher fulfillment. He has personally moved from sales struggles to success, large debt to financial freedom, poor and good health, aimlessness to purpose, excessiveness to moderation, bad habits to good habits, mentee to mentor, follower to successful leader, solo player to family man. Kevin and his wife, Jessica, son, Elliot, and daughter, Raylan, currently live in Jacksonville, Florida. And Kevin, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for what you do and shining the light on entrepreneurs and people doing big things. I'm glad to be included in that group, and to your team at Performance Publishing for helping get the book launched is crucial, and I'm so grateful. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I'm excited because, you're doing so many things. And by the way, I love your bio because you touch on so many things that I know for myself and other people listening can totally resonate with, right? We've all been somewhere, but we want to be somewhere else. And so let's start with you. I just want to know a little bit more about you, about yourself, your family. So tell us about Kevin.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised pretty much, I call the East Coast of Florida my hometown because as a child, my dad was a developer. And so we moved around a lot. And so, I mean, I've lived everywhere from Miami to Jacksonville and just about everything in between. I love the state, love the East Coast of Florida. And, didn't deal with, any major disruptions in life until when I was 10 years old. My parents got a divorce, and so that was a little bit traumatic for my sister and I. And so the moving around a lot continued. So I think I was at like maybe 7 or 8 schools before high school even. And so moving around, trying to adapt to different environments, and then moving through, childhood into, teenage years, we kind of settled in the Jacksonville, Florida area. So started to put down some roots here, went to college up in North Carolina, Elon University, and then got into the working world back here in Jacksonville pretty quickly. And after graduating from college, got right into a job with Merrill Lynch here in Jacksonville and started my corporate journey. I'll say is kind of phase 1 of my experience in the working world. And while doing that, just like everybody else trying to figure out, navigate the real world, really started having some challenges. And I'll give a lot of credit to my parents. I learned tremendously valuable lessons from both of my parents. My dad was an excellent businessman, taught me a lot about how to navigate the business world, negotiations, great stuff. My mom was one of the most caring people that you'll ever meet in life, and so I kind of had that too, so I can kind of merge the caring and the empathy with the business and the tactical. And so I think that gave me a good foundation, but I was also a bit of a rebellious young man, I guess. So kind of kind of went off and made quite a few mistakes. And you read some of it in the bio. Just, health was not a priority for me. I was partying too much. I was aimless. I was smoking packs of cigarettes a day. I mean, it was just, I was all over the place and experiencing some success, in what I was doing. I was selling and I'm doing okay at that. And had a great group of friends and that was all good. But it was over a period of time that I realized that, and through some mentors that kind of spoke into my life that, I really need to get a bit more intentional about where I want to go over the long term, as opposed to just kind of blowing wherever the wind took me. And I think that's kind of the foundation. I mean, that's a real short. So I mean, eventually got, as far as the career went, got into real estate, left finance, got into real estate for a variety of reasons we might get into, and then grew not only a sales career in real estate, but also got into the leadership side of things, first as a sales manager, then as a vice president, eventually, as you mentioned, CEO of a large company in Jacksonville. So a lot of experience on the business side, a lot of experience on the personal development side, going from aimlessness and purposelessness and terrible health to, and gosh, I would nowhere near perfect, would I say, but definitely in a different area and more intentional about where I'm taking things these days. And so that's kind of the overview. I met my wife in 2006. I'm so fortunate. She's amazing. She was a big part, in addition to my faith, a big part of me kind of moving in the right direction. She's very helpful in that. Over a period of time, we got married in 2013, and then our first child in 2017, Elliot, and then Raylan came along in 2022. And we're getting ready to celebrate her third birthday in a couple days. We have 50 people descending on our household this weekend to do that. And so a lot of stuff going on right now, but just so thankful and blessed to have the family that I do, and having been able to, navigate through some challenging times along the way.
Well, and that's part of why I love your story, Kevin, because, I know I can relate to this. I know most people can. I mean, your life is going in one direction. You think you have it figured out. And I was about to ask you, well, what was the catalyst? What was it that kind of nudged you? And you said your faith, your wife, and also a mentor.
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
you go ahead?
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to give a quick shout out. Now he passed away a few years ago, but David McWilliams was a very, very big presence in my life in that early 20s range. Now, I'm not going to say I met David and then snapped my fingers and everything went awesome. That's not the way it happened, but I did see in him character, how he lived his life and characteristics and his family life and his spiritual life and how he approached work and how he had this, what I perceived as beautiful balance, or harmony is probably the better word, in how he lived and his integrity. It just set a great example for me. So there were still some, bumps along the road, but that was a really good initial mentor for me. Again, outside of my parents, that helped me in the right direction.
It just goes to show you don't know how you're impacting someone until,
That's right.
he may or may not have known the impact he had on you. And
I
so
told him no, and that's one message that I would relay, is because as I learned along the way, to appreciate, people that, speak into you. Every time I got a promotion, every time something went well, when I got married or whatever, he either got a call from me or a note of gratitude from me, and I let him know. I let him know.
that is so good. Zig Ziglar had a wall of gratitude. So all the people throughout his life, starting with his mother, all all the way on through bosses and other people who have spoken into him, and because he never wanted to forget, we're never we are who we are, and we get where we are not on our own. It's kind of like he would tell a funny story about, when you see a turtle on a fence post, you got to believe they didn't get there on their own. And most of us, that's the case, right? So
That's right. That's right. And he was the first of a handful. I mean, I think mentors in life are so important, and learning lessons along the way are so important. Kind of, I had not heard that about Zig Ziglar, but one thing that I started doing, and it's a little morbid, but it's important to me, is I've had, quite a few friends and family pass away over the years, and so what I started doing was keeping a list of who they were, and then what's the most important lesson or character trait that they had, that if I can somehow carry that forward, would be a good reminder of that person. So I don't like that the list is growing, but I do feel like it is a way for me to remember and also think back to some of the great lessons that they taught.
oh, I love that idea. Actually, that's such a, I may borrow that.
Thank you. Feel free. Thank you. We all borrow. We all borrow, right? We all share.
Right, there's no original.
Maybe I read that somewhere. I don't know.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Well, I want to make sure we talk about your book, because One to Grow
Okay.
On is your new book, and let's tell the audience more about what is this book about.
Yeah, so the kind of the beginning of it was, 2020, I think I, along with, most people, got really introspective. We have this new virus, and we really didn't know what was going on. I don't think anyone had any level of expertise for a long time. And about that time also, a couple of my friends passed away. Now, not from COVID, for other reasons. And they both had some young kids. And at the time, I had a 3-year-old. Elliot was 3 at the time. And so I just started thinking, if something happened to me, then, there are a lot of things that I'd like to pass along to him, a lot of lessons I learned along the way that I'd like him to be able to, relate to, or learn from. And so I just started writing the lessons down. About the same time, I was doing a training session for a group of sales professionals. And I think it was before we actually really started leaving the offices. But somebody meant, I told a few stories and gave the lesson, and someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, you ought to consider writing a book." And I thought, well, I kind of already am, but if there was a way for me to expand the scope of this thing, and then I started thinking, what if I were to write something to someone that was struggling the way I was in my mid 20s, that maybe doesn't have that mentor, that maybe doesn't have someone that's speaking into them, and so it became kind of a convergence of those things, and that was the birth of One to Grow On. So it's really just for anybody that hasn't been intentional about personal development, or thinks, geez, I'm not, what am I doing, or not sure where to begin. And that's kind of the initial concept. So it's lessons. I researched it a lot. I mean, the thing took 3 years to write, 4 years to write. And it's not designed to be like an end all be all. It's called One to Grow On. The idea, though, is this is a good starting point, but then within the book, there are all kinds of resources of the different topics. So if you want to learn more about, habit and skill development, well, here's what I went through. Here are some action steps to take. And by the way, here's 3, if this resonates with you, here's 3 really good books that were influential to me, that you can go dive further into these things. And so that's really the concept is, helping someone that isn't really intentional about personal growth and development to just start somewhere. That's the idea.
What you say is the ideal reader for this? Is it somebody maybe in the younger years, like you were when you were transitioning, kind of, or is it for those of us who have been through many seasons and maybe we're looking for our next? But who would you say would benefit the most?
Yeah, I think the way you said it is perfect. It was written towards me at age 23, though.
Yeah.
And so if somebody is coming to that time, I mean, you got to be ready for it. Like, I think there's a, I believe everybody's reachable, but at different periods of time. So I think if you're thinking, yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're, 25 or 80, if you're thinking, geez, I could use a different outlook, I could use some different ideas, maybe a mindset thing, maybe a habits thing, then it could be for you. But really, it's the, coming out of college, low 20s, mid 20s. That was the idea, that the target market I had in mind when I wrote it, because those were where I learned a lot of the lessons that I wanted to pass along to Elliot in terms of how to overcome some of those challenges.
I love that because I think you and I talked about this early on. But when I wrote my first book, that was exactly my motivation. I never intended that I would share it with anyone else. I wrote my first book, Winning in Life Now, for my boys, who at the time were 7 and 5, second grade and
Yeah.
kindergarten. And now they're older. But I did your book and shipped it to both of them because now
Oh,
one's 25 and one is 20. He'll be 22 in March. And so it's almost like those are the things that I probably was exposed to at that age, but maybe I wasn't listening. And so,
right.
and sometimes, especially for our own kids, sometimes they need to hear it through other people, right?
No question. Yeah, and by the way, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I would love to hear feedback. I love getting feedback from all of it. And we also do have a mechanism for the feedback. We turn the book into a course.
Mm.
And the course actually walks people through. There's video, there's action plans, there's webinars. So for someone that gets into the book and says, "Well, I really like this. This resonates," and wants to kind of go a little bit further, and that does have a feedback loop, because then they could say, "Well, I tried this, and this is what happened, and this is how I approached it, and this is what I tweaked maybe." And then we just share the wins inside of our LinkedIn community. So I think we'll talk a little bit about where people can go in a few minutes, but I love hearing back from people that have experienced the book, and whether they had a big win from it, or hey, I tried this and this didn't work for me, but I did it this way instead. I love it.
And
I
I
love
love
that.
that you have Beyond the Book too. So you do have all of these resources
Sure.
and then let's talk about those your coaching because your business Momentors, you're an executive coach, consultant, you do a lot of different things beyond just the book.
Hmm.
Um, but what challenges do you see or do you encounter when you're working with other leaders? People that are, and it could be salespeople, but it could be also business leaders.
Yep.
What are you encountering out there?
Yeah, I'm so fortunate that the people I get to work with are amazing, and I love them all. And most of the time, I find that I don't want it more for them than they want it for themselves, because every once in a while in my leadership career, sometimes you want something more for someone than they want it for themselves. Most of the people I get to work with right now are pretty well motivated and engaged in what they're doing. But I've been coaching people for a lot of years, and I generally find 6 areas where people get stuck, and that is sometimes a challenge to help people identify where that is. And so just to real quickly, uh, foundational. So sometimes people will get stuck because they haven't really spent time to think about, what is my purpose? What is my mission? It could change over time, but right now, what is it that I'm really trying to accomplish? What's my vision for my life, from family wise to occupation to recreation? What are some things that I can see myself doing over a period of time? And then the other thing I have my clients do is think about their principles. What are some of the values that are non-negotiable for you as you go build this life for yourself? Because if you have a good set of principles or values, then you have your filter for decision making, right? And some people that have a hard time making decisions one path or the other, sometimes it's because they haven't built that filter yet as to what's non-negotiable for them. So that's one thing that we kind of peel back the onion on. The next thing is that can be a challenge is mindset, or another way is like your self-worth. I work some people where it's like you just have to get to the point where you deserve success. You're putting in the work. You kind of getting in your own way because there's something that we have to figure out that's blocked, whether it's a fear thing or whether it's a worthiness thing. Let's peel back the onion there, and that can be challenging as well. Then we get into, like, now we're moving from kind of philosophical. Now we're getting into like planning and time and energy management. And for some people, living a big life is a fear thing. Some people it's they're all over the place with time and energy management. So we get into focus and we get into minimizing drama and distractions. And then we get into habit development and skills, and if there's a gap between knowing what to do and actually what to do, and actually doing it, what is getting in the way there. And then finally, it's being ready for challenges, because it will get challenging. And so what's your resilience plan? and then celebrate the journey, not just the milestones, not just the accomplishments, but what are we doing? What are we doing it for if we can't figure out a way to find joy along the way, even through the challenges? And by the way, this is not, this is not me preachy. This is me constantly going through all these and trying to improve in my own life and trying to help, and trying to work as a family unit and in service to others and clients and try to do better with this stuff ourselves as well. So yeah, and the biggest challenge is self-leadership. A lot of these things that I sit down and look someone in the eye or look someone through the Zoom and say, hey, let's identify some things you ought to be doing and then make a prescription. I look at myself and say, all right, am I living this out myself? And so that's a big challenge too. But we do it. So we do it in kind of a unique way. So there's different coaching philosophies, and I've kind of combined three. It's Socratic, it's mentorship, and it's accountability. And we move, there's fluidity through those different areas because sometimes, often, the person I'm coaching knows the answer. And it's just a series of questions, and it's better if they come up with it. Sometimes they don't know the answer, though. I don't believe the student always knows the answer. Sometimes it's, I've been through it, they really need some advice. And so that's where the mentorship part comes in. And then once we've identified what the thing is, what do I need to add? What do I need to reduce? Whatever it is, then there's the accountability piece. And so it's just trying to figure out, customize to each individual where they are and what they need. And sometimes I can diagnose that pretty quickly, and sometimes it takes me a while. Some people are, hard to read. And so then we get into like personality assessments and that type of stuff and when necessary. But it's so challenging in one respect because I'm not in it just to, for the revenue piece of it. I am serious about the outcomes for the people I work with. And so we really put together a plan that not only they understand why behind it, but there's clarity on the what and what the expectations are each week.
Yeah,
That was a long answer.
no, no, I was just about to say though, I can feel your passion though. I mean, yes, you are doing this, it is a business, but I can feel it that this is something more than that for you, and to be able to, there is nothing better than to see someone's life changed as a result of something that, whether you asked a question to help them to figure it out on their own or whether you gave them direction. I like that you have all three aspects of your coaching. Yeah. I've been a coach and I've been in the coachee seat. And sometimes I don't want you to just ask me the question. Sometimes I want you to tell me what to do. And sometimes you don't hold me accountable and say, guess what? You dropped the ball. You said you would do it and you didn't. Let's fix it. So I love your approach, but I can see it comes from passion more than anything.
Yeah, it does. I care a lot, and I really enjoy the outcomes when and by the way, at the same time, not taking credit for it. It's you're the one. It's, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, this has been life changing. You're the one doing the work. The real value in coaching is not the hour that we're together. It's everything in between until the next hour. That's where you're doing the amazing work. And so I try to make sure my people know that.
I love that you said that because so many times I'll get that same thing, think you can do it with, no, you did it. You wrote the book. You did the hard work. So it's a team effort there. One thing I have to just also point out before we move on is helping them to celebrate the successes versus just the accomplishment and the journey.
Yeah.
And I learned that early in life. Somebody had suggested that to me. In fact, they had suggested keeping track of I had a success journal, and success did not mean accomplishment. It meant maybe I completed all my tasks in a day, or maybe I made someone smile, and you keep it in this journal. And if you're a high achiever, like most people who you're probably working with, is when you're having those down days and you're feeling, I've failed. I'm so behind the schedule. I haven't done anything. Is you go back and look, and you're like, you know what? It's all a journey, and I am successful. It doesn't mean I'm just doing and doing and doing. And I know if people I can fall in the trap of just accomplishment and not stopping and realizing. So I like that you really help your the people that you're working with to appreciate the journey. That's
thank you. And that I love your idea, and it certainly is. That's a challenge for all of us, myself included. But I love that, and if I get up and I exercise in the morning, one of the chapters in the book talks about starting and ending the day well. I believe if you start and end the day well, then a lot of the stuff in between that may be causing friction or issues can starts to wrap up. And if I get up in the morning and I exercise, it's the exercise that should be celebrated, not whether or not I lost 5 pounds at the end of the month. It's
Mhm.
the actual act of the exercise that should be implemented. And so that's where the wins happen. Same thing with anything else that you're doing to develop a business or to focus on your family life or whatever. It's the I spent 30 meaningful minutes with my child today, uninterrupted, no devices, no whatever. That's the stuff that I'm talking about. And so keeping a journal of it, I think makes a lot of sense because the dark clouds will form, the tough days will come, and to be able to have something to look back on and do that. One other journaling idea is if and this is personal to me because I used to do this and I broke the habit when something didn't go my way. I was in a presentation that didn't go great, or I didn't get the sale, or whatever it was. The employee left, they quit. I used to ruminate and I would just play it back over and over and over again in my mind. And eventually I realized that that's just feeding the non-conscious brain with negativity. So I started journaling what happened, what went wrong, or excuse me, what I did that I don't think, or what I did that was okay or good, and then what would I do differently next time? And doing that um, helped me put it to bed and take the lesson from it and not continue to screw myself up about it. It's just another, when you mentioned journaling, I thought that I would share that as well because that's been helpful for me.
Yeah, and I love, so you're a constant learner. It sounds and I have a passion for this as well. So you and I think could talk forever about all of this. But I do want to know, so the book has been out for a little while and you're continuing to do new things on it. And so there's so much good content in the book already. But is there anything that's happened since you wrote the book? Any new thoughts or new things that you've learned personally since you're constantly learning?
Yeah, what I didn't spend a lot of time on in the book, I've spent more time researching recently, and I'm not a doctor, but I've been reading, like Daniel Amen comes to mind, a lot about brain health.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work on mindset and worthiness, and that's all amazing. His thesis is if you don't have a healthy brain, a lot of that stuff is either more difficult or it doesn't work at all. And so I've been really looking into, and he's got a couple books, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And I think the other one's called Bright Minds. And so that's where I'm going now. And interestingly enough, recently I found myself in the emergency room because I went blurry in my left eye. And I know that's not good. And so that could be really bad. And I won't make it a dramatic story. Everything's fine. It wasn't, what goes off in your mind is like, oh my gosh, I'm having a stroke. And so I did all the things and going to the hospital, and it's like it's so visceral but surreal at the same time. They look at me and they get on the microphone in the emergency room and they're like, we have a stroke alert. And I'm like, is this really happening? And so next thing I know, I'm in the CT machine and they're doing all these tests and the MRI and everything. And so the learning lesson is got to take care of your brain because there were a lot of years that I did not. And so if I am a stroke candidate, it's not for what I'm doing now. It's for what I did 8 years ago, 10 years ago, smoking cigarettes, drinking too much, that type of stuff. So that's one learning lesson. If I could go put that a little bit more in the book about, trying to reach the 20 somethings or the 30 somethings about earlier than later, start getting serious about that stuff, then that's one thing. And who knows, maybe there's a future book, but that's one thing. And the other thing is, the things I were praying for while I was in those machines, it did not have to do with making more money or anything other than, family. I want more time with my family, my friends. I want to make a bigger difference. I want to make sure I make a positive difference and leave a decent mark here. That those would be lessons that or stories that I would convey in the book. So yeah, not the kind of the way that you want the wake up call to happen, but again, challenges happen all the time, and how we respond to them is really where it's at. So.
Well, I know one
That's
thing for sure, you are making an impact and a difference, and with your clients, but also through this book. And so I want to make sure the listeners know how to get your book and get in touch with you because you have the community, you have courses, free resources. Tell us how to do that.
Sure. I think the easiest thing is just to go to www.momentorsllc.com. And you have all the blogs, resources, the community there, all my socials, momentorsllc.com, and love to connect with you, love to hear from you, and join the community, or just shoot me a note. My contact information's there. And again, thank you, Michelle, for asking me some questions and dealing with my long-winded answers, as I mentioned in the pre-show that tends to happen. I'll start going, but thanks for tolerating it, and thanks for everything that you guys and your team do, and then shining your light on the entrepreneurial world. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I'm so excited about it. And I can't wait to see what else happens as you continue to help people to be their best self. So thanks so much, Kevin. Appreciate you being on the show.
Take care, Michelle. Thanks.
All right, everyone, that is it for the Power of Authority Spotlight. I really want you to go to momentorsllc.com, get this book, but not just for yourself, share it with other people, especially those in that age range that Kevin and I were talking about. You know, I wish I had that kind of book at that age, and I'm so grateful that my boys do, and others will as well. So go to momentorsllc.com, and we will see you next time on the Power of Authority Spotlight. Thanks so much for listening to the Power of Authority Spotlight. If you are a successful founder, entrepreneur, business owner, or leader that's getting results and making a difference, and you'd like to be on this program, please visit performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast to apply. That's performancepublishinggroup.com/podcast. Also, if you got something out of this interview, please share this episode. Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag #ThePowerOfAuthoritySpotlight. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss any episodes by subscribing. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our websites, performancepublishinggroup.com or michelleprince.com, and follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.